There's a technique that I believe is used in counselling that I came across a few years ago now, called clean language. Clean language, and it's a kind of it's not exactly a psychotherapeutic technique, but it's a way of approaching clients in a counselling situation to help them with problems of some kind or another. I've never been in as a counsellor. I've been in counselling, but I've never been a counsellor myself. But I have read quite a bit about this, and basically because it uses metaphor a lot, and obviously that's one of my interests. But it's really interesting the way it works. And I mean, what it basically does is, or the intention of it, is to try to get a sense of what metaphors are playing out in the client's head. You know, how are they thinking? What figurative language are they thinking with? What is their mental landscape like? And kind of respecting that, staying in the metaphor that the person occupies, and then helping them to understand it a bit better. Because if you understand your mental landscape a bit better, so the theory goes, then you might be able to find ways to solve problems there. So, for example, you know, a patient, isn't really talking like I know what I'm talking about. A client might come in and say, yeah, I feel like I'm really stuck. I feel like I'm really stuck. Now, it's the counsellor's job here, deploying clean language, to recognise that they've said something about being stuck, and not to try to intervene and put a completely different metaphor in the situation. You know what I mean? You have to stay with the metaphor that the client has got, to stay with that. So the way you do that is you ask a series of questions, and these questions use what, as I say, is called clean language, which is supposedly language that's been stripped of as much metaphorical baggage as possible. So they're really simple questions. So a person comes in and says, oh, I just feel like I'm really stuck. And you, as a counsellor, might say, well, okay, you're stuck. And what kind of stuck is that? So it doesn't add anything, it just acknowledges that they've said they're stuck and asks them to expand on that. So they might say, yeah, I just feel like I can't get anywhere, you know, I feel like I'm really bogged down. Okay, the counsellor says, so you're stuck, you feel like you can't get anywhere, you're bogged down. And when you're stuck and you're feeling like you can't get anywhere, when you're bogged down, what happens then? So, and the client might say, well, it's like I can't get anywhere, you know, it's like everything's getting on top of me, and it's like I just can't move, you know, everything's on top of me, it's really, that kind of thing. Okay, the counsellor might say, so you're stuck, you're bogged down, can't get anywhere, and everything's getting on top of you, and then what happens? So, well, you know, everything gets on top of me, and then I try to, you know, I'm trying to push myself through. I try to push through, but I just get so tired, you know, because I'm pushing, or I get angry because I'm pushing so hard. I just get angry. Okay, the counsellor might say, okay, you're stuck and you're bogged down, and everything's getting on top of you, and you're pushing, and it's making you exhausted. And what else could you do? What else could you do? So what's happening here is the counsellor is trying to get the client to stay within the metaphor, stay within this metaphor of perhaps being on a path that's boggy, getting their feet covered in mud, the mud being deeper and deeper, covered in it. You know, this is the kind of metaphorical landscape that the client is inhabiting. So the counsellor say, well, what else could you do? What else is available to you? And maybe the client might say something like, well, I just feel like I just need to stop, you know, just feel like I need to stop pushing, stop trying to push on through, I don't know, maybe just stop, just have a rest, you know, maybe even take a step back, you know, maybe just take a step back and look at this thing from a distance. Maybe I just need to look at this thing from a distance and stop trying to push on through. And so the counsellor might say, okay, so you've been stuck and you're bogged down, it's all gone on top of you, and you've been pushing, and then you stop and you stop pushing and you just rest and you take a step back and you just look at this thing, and then what happens? Staying within the metaphor, then what happens? Well, then the client might say, well, you know, if I step back and look at this thing, maybe I can see a way around it, you know, maybe I can see ways over this thing. Maybe I don't need to get involved in the stuckness, you know, maybe I don't need to let things get on top. Maybe I can just pull back, you know, recharge the batteries, you know, maybe look around, maybe find some people around who will help, find a different way through. Yeah, I guess that's an ideal scenario, but it's a clean language, you know, it's a use of metaphor in a counselling situation, which doesn't try to change the situation, doesn't try to change the way that the person is thinking. tries to use the tools that the person is already familiar with, use the mental cognitive landscape that the person is already occupying, and then pull out the different entailments of the metaphor. Instead of the entailments being to do with being caught in a bog and being covered in mud and struggling to get out, the entailments are to do with, this is a place, I'm walking here, I can step back. If I step back, I can see things from a bit of a distance. Maybe there's some other people around me. Maybe I can proceed in a different way, which is a bit healthier and more useful.